seen the scenes from this great, this magisterial country, have a look at it and ask yourself, if you had a family member who was ill and they couldn't get oxygen, what that would feel like. Can't breathe, travelling sometimes hundreds, 1,000 kilometres, miles to get oxygen in the lungs of loved ones. It is just so desperate, can't believe it. Seeing the scenes, it's harrowing. What are we going to do about it in this country? What can we do about it? What should we do? Why can't we be motivated enough now to help others? Do we have enough medicines ourselves here? Do we have enough vaccines for us to be able to divert medicines from here to there? What sort of help can we give? Would you be willing to give? I certainly would. 0345 6060 973. What should we do in this country to help a country which is just descending into hell, from what I can see? Right, 7:05. It's a heavy subject, I know. Let's get some more details from LBC's reporter in Delhi, Neha Punya. Neha, good morning to you. Obviously, you will have seen what's going on. Can you give us a sense of the scale of the crisis?
Good morning. I think every single day it seems real to be talking about these many numbers. We've just seen these numbers come out for the last 4 hours, and it's more than 300,000 cases again, more than 2,600 deaths. And you're absolutely right. All of this has meant India's healthcare infrastructure has absolutely collapsed. Just this morning, you had 20 people died in a hospital because there wasn't enough oxygen for them. Another hospital put an SOS with the director of that hospital down to say that we have 1 hour's worth of oxygen supply left. This sadly is a story in India's capital, a city that has the best medical infrastructure anywhere in the country. We're seeing people being turned away from hospitals. We're seeing most people unable to even access basic essential drugs. If you log on to social media, my entire timeline is one SOS message after another. Many people are making it. Sadly, many more aren't. And the reality is many people are now dying of COVID-19, not because they have the infection, cannot access basic medical care.
So a desperate situation. Let me ask you this: why wasn't India prepared for this, and why do people think that it has exploded the way it has, the number of infections and hospitalizations and deaths?
I think there are two important reasons for it. Here you had cases fall to record lows. It was around the same time that India launched its vaccination program, one of the largest anywhere in the world. There was a sense of optimism that perhaps, unlike in other parts of the world, there wouldn't be a second wave. People let their guards down. You had mass religious events being held. You had political rallies, people holding parties, weddings. It was almost as if India had, COVID-19 and, a sense of normality return to most of our lives. But, this is what's led to the crisis we're seeing right now, because people let COVID-19 come back, and with the many cases, grew by such a large margin. But of course, is that it's not just behavior, but experts believe there is a mutation here, which is causing the disease to spread more quickly.
Sure, I'll be speaking with a doctor in just 1 second,
Yeah.
but Neha, just Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister Boris Johnson were supposed to be meeting in person. That was cancelled before the UK moved India into onto the red list. Will they be meeting virtually and soon?
Virtually on Monday. Boris Johnson his visit twice now, once in January, and he was here next week. But given how bad this country is, that this but they will be speaking online, and we understand that COVID-19 corporations, once they will touch upon Boris Johnson speaking on this, just the offering help to India, saying that it's a great partner for the UK and that the government there is looking to send ventilators and perhaps it's all help that India will, really urgently need. Quite possible there might be some talk on vaccine cooperation as well, because India sent to the UK 5 million doses. Many experts are hoping that that consumption confinement can be deferred because it needs those vaccines a lot more than we.
Neha, thank you very much indeed. Struggling through the line, but we got all the detail. Much appreciated. So Modi and Johnson talking on Monday. What would you like your Prime Minister to say to Mr. Modi? How can we offer help? 0345 6060 973. Dr. Ranjiv Ranjan is Chief Advisor to the Association of Resident Doctors of the All India Institute of Medical Sciences in New Delhi. Dr. Ranjan, the situation as described, as seen on media here, probably doesn't begin to convey the drama and the tragedy of what is going on. Your thoughts, please.
Good morning, everybody in UK. So rightly said, the situation here is getting very pathetic since last 1.5 weeks. Nobody has thought ever that the COVID-19 would resurge in such a dramatic way and in such a bad way, creating havoc all around. So as we see, like in the previous episode, when COVID-19 happened to the world in 2020, at that time also, at the very peak most time, India noticed a maximum of 93 to 94,000 cases. But as you can see, every day the cases are increasing. The cases are adding more than 50,000 to the case, and yesterday's data is more than 3.5 lakh. So there is havoc all around India, and some of the reasons that we have added to this situation is that the government thought that there may not be any resurgence, and now COVID has gone and people also started feeling relaxed. So, but nobody knew that there are three mutant variants. One is UK variant, Brazilian variant, and South African variant. And another variant which has appeared a few days before in India, known as the West Bengal variant. It's supposed to be a triple mutant variant. So all this have altogether caused really a very panicking situation here in India. Since last 2-3 days,
desperate in India. I was profoundly shocked yesterday, having taken a day off from the news. Turned it on yesterday and saw that stuff. I mean, could not believe it.
It's absolutely shocking. Yes, I agree.
What on earth can we do?
Well, I think actually your previous guest gave a perfect solution there. The fact that this is a global problem. We need a global response to tackle it. And actually seeing the support and the help that's coming in from the world, that is really the best way to support India through these really difficult, challenging times. And so I think really sort of it's a little bit late, it's a bit delayed, because we've seen this problem coming. It's been brewing in India since early March. You can look at the graphs and you can see the number of cases has been going up and up and up and up, and that's exponentially increasing now because of this R rate that's really increased in India. And so it's delayed.
And what about the Indian variant in the UK? Last weekend we were talking about there were 77 cases. It went over 100 cases. How concerned should we be? Do we know how effective the vaccines that we have are against the Indian variant?
I am very worried about this particular variant, although at this point in time it's not labelled as a variant of concern because we're waiting to get all the scientific data to be able to label it as such. But I'm really worried about it because the genetic mutations that are present in this variant are very similar to those that we've seen in the Brazilian and the South African, which means that it's better able to escape the immune system that's been primed by vaccination, for instance. So it means that this particular mutant might be able to still be transmissible and infect people that have been vaccinated. That is really concerning. It's also got another mutation similar to the one that's been described in the Californian variant, and that is one of these highly transmissible variants, similar to the UK variant. So it's got increased transmissibility potentially, and it could potentially escape from the vaccine.
Okay, well, I guess time will tell as we discover more and more about this. Meantime, literally, our prayers are with those in India going through this. Sally J. Cutler, Professor of Medical Microbiology at the University of East London. How can you listen to all that and not asking yourself the question, what can we do to help India? Of course, we've got to help ourselves first, but what should we do? 0345 6060 973. Having talked about that, we're now going to talk about this squabble at the top of our political game involving the former Prime Minister's Chief Advisor, the former Chief Advisor of the Prime Minister, one Dominic Cummings, versus Boris Johnson. Pathetic. More after the news with Harley Jones.
Dominic Cummings has made a series of scathing allegations against Boris Johnson, questioning his competence and integrity. The UK is planning extra support for India as the country struggles to contain a growing wave of coronavirus cases. The search has continued for a missing Indonesian submarine. Officials think the oxygen supply has run out. The weather, a chilly start, then fine, dry and bright with plenty of sunshine for most, a high of 18 degrees. LBC Travel, I'm Katie Tyler. The M4 is shut again this weekend in both directions between junction 6 for Slough and 89 for Maidenhead because of roadworks. In Thornton Heath, the London Road is partially blocked southbound near the McDonald's. That's because of an accident. And in Baltimore, the traffic lights aren't working on Hartford Road near Mollison Avenue. On the trains, King's Cross Mainline Station is shut for engineering works. And on the Underground, there are severe delays on the Bakerloo line between Queen's Park and Harrow and Wealdstone. That's after a signalling problem earlier.
This is LBC.
It could be a first timer or a long timer or a once in a while. It could be a little or a lot. It could be the ticket on your fruit magnet. It could be someone with your first name, and last, and middle, or it could be you. Tonight's Lotto jackpot is £12 million, and it must be won. Or thousands of you will get a share of the jackpot. Play on app, online, and in store. Lotto from the National Lottery. Your numbers make amazing happen. Estimated jackpot. Account terms for all
results within 30 minutes. They also show you're doing what you can to protect your loved ones, your friends, your workmates, and that you want to keep life moving again. Around 1 in 3 people who have COVID-19 have no symptoms and are spreading it without knowing. That could be a friend, a relative, a workmate. It could even be you. Rapid tests are easy to get from nhs.uk/get tested. Let's take this next step safely.
This is LBC with Andrew Castle. Call 0345 6060 973. Tweet at LBC. Text 84850.
The Prime Minister's this is a statement yesterday regarding number 10 claims today, and this is from Dominic Cummings' blog, okay, former chief advisor. He says, this is the first 2 lines of it, it's 1,000 words long. He says, the Prime Minister's new Director of Communications, Jack Doyle, at the Prime Minister's request, has made a number of false accusations to the media. All right, bang. Okay, then we're into Dyson, we're into lockdown leaking, and whether or not the Prime Minister interfered in a leak inquiry in order to protect a friend of his fiancé's who might have been implicated in that. Or that's potentially a leak that, well, I told him he can possibly cancel an inquiry about a leak that affected millions of people just because it might implicate his girlfriend's friends. I mean, the whole thing stinks. I mean, it does. Do people care about it? I don't know. We'll talk about it in the next hour. And then there was the refurbishment of the flat, which I'll go into in just a second. Obviously, the papers are all over this. The Sundays are going to be all over it. We're all supposed to be terribly concerned about it. It's so hard after looking at what's actually going on in India to have any respect for anybody that gets into something like this when there is such a big sort of set of challenges ahead. But I know it's important. Of course it's important. Labour are going to come out and say everybody's mired in sleeves, same old Tories, they're going to make political capital, we're all trying to live our lives. This is the distance between politics and, for me, a lot of the time, real world. Anyway, obviously Charlotte Lynch played a blinder. She asked the Prime, she wouldn't let him go. She asked the Prime Minister yesterday about Mr. Cummings' statement. Charlotte Lynch.
Dominic Cummings has just released a statement denying even receiving the messages between yourself and James Dyson, let alone leaking them. What do you say to that? And what do you also say to a further claim that he's made that you tried to block an inquiry into who leaked information about the latest lockdown before it was announced? He says you tried to stop that because you thought it might have been one of your girlfriend's friends that released that information.
Look, I haven't seen that statement, and I think on the substance of the issue, which is my contact with James Dyson and indeed loads of other manufacturers in this country, I think it was totally right to have those conversations.
Well, the Prime Minister also hit back at criticism of his conversations with James Dyson.
Frankly, I am slightly amazed by the criticism that I've heard, because I was attacked by the Labour leader on Wednesday for doing this, for trying to secure ventilators for our country by talking to Dyson, and by the way, trying to respond to some of the requests he made so he could bring people over to this country to do it. Actually, at the same time, the previous Labour leader, Tony Blair, who I think is in many ways a more serious figure on this particular question, said that any Prime Minister in those circumstances would have done the same. And I think he was right.
And that is Boris Johnson talking to Charlotte Lynch, and we'll play more of that around about 8:05 this morning. In fact, the entire interview, she was very, very tenacious, and got some decent answers as well. Daily Mail papers have gone ballistic on it, of course. Daily Mail, really. Dom's all-out war with the Prime Minister. Picture of 2 men coming in from the left to the right-hand side of their front page. The Guardian this morning. Cummings hits back with astonishing attack on Prime Minister. Ex-advisor denies leaks and accuses Johnson of possibly illegal acts. Cummings declares war on unethical, foolish Prime Minister, says the Times this Saturday morning. And front page of the Daily Telegraph, and right in the centre, a big picture of Dominic Cummings wearing a slightly oversized coat, looking sort of stylishly dishevelled. Cummings declares war on Prime Minister. Indeed, Kate Proctor is political editor of Politics. So, Kate, good morning to you. Where
heard the influence of his fiancée Carrie Simons and her set of friends. So look, that is important. If we're talking about a leak inquiry, but I think probably what's more important is the flat, the refurbishment of the flat and how that was paid for, because I think that's something that people can genuinely really relate to, and that feels really uncomfortable if someone is trying to first of all, there's using taxpayers' money to do up the flat. There's a certain allowance every year for that to happen, and it's how the rest of the costs have been met. And I think once the Electoral Commission are starting to look into things like that, this really is quite a serious issue, and there are serious questions to answer about money, what's fair, and really just the entire sort of Johnson approach to being Prime Minister. So some of these issues are a bit blurry, and it's quite hard to get into, but they are really, really important. I think it can be a bit lazy just to dismiss it as infighting. I think it really goes to the character of the government.
I know, I understand that, but having discussed India this morning and seen the scenes there, it's very hard to have anything but a little sense of perspective on some of this. On some of this, on the flat, I was quite intrigued, Kate. On the flat, this is very personal now with Dominic Cummings versus Boris Johnson, it would seem, because Carrie Simons is involved in this. I was hearing one reporter at Downing Street yesterday saying that the refurbishment was sort of hers, and it's personal when you bring in flat refurbishments, and I just I wonder if that takes it to a new level in a way.
I think it just highlights how much the relationship broke down between the Prime Minister's fiancée and Dominic Cummings. Clearly that is an extremely dysfunctional relationship between all of them in terms of who's on whose side and the influence that other people have. But at the heart of it, Dominic Cummings is saying that plans that were made for the refurbishment, redecoration of that flat, basically could be illegal. That is such an enormous claim. Number 10 obviously say that's not correct. They say everything's been done properly. But I think when you've got someone who was once an ally, Dominic Cummings and the Prime Minister, they were vote leave buddies together, and then Dominic Cummings has turned on him to say something that he and his fiancée were trying to do is possibly unethical, even illegal. That is the most serious claim. And I just think, we keep going back to this point, but it just all feels so dysfunctional. It's very embarrassing, and this is not what you want to see from a government.
Why did Boris trigger this fight in the first place by getting his Director of Communications, Jack Doyle, at the Prime Minister's request, as Cummings has said, to make a number of false accusations in the media in the first place? I mean, this was triggered by Boris. He's ahead in the polls. You've got the local elections coming up. When asked the question, the electorate, I know there's not a general election coming up, who would you vote for government? They 10-point lead for the Tories. So why the fight? Why pick it in the first place, Mr. Johnson?
This is such a good question. Why would you poke somebody who is known to be vicious and who doesn't play by the rules, particularly himself? Dominic Cummings is also, someone who knows where all the bodies are buried in Downing Street. Effectively, he was there for 18 months. It beggars belief that you would go in this hard and brief against someone like that when you know that they still have WhatsApp messages, within their possession. I think it's a real error of judgment, and I think there was an idea that they could put Dominic Cummings in his place. And I don't want to over-egg this man's power, but you have to be very honest that he has a lot of information on the government, and I think he's just bit back. I just think it was a huge mistake to brief against him so hard.
Yeah. Kate, thank you very much indeed for being with us quite early this morning, 7:30. Kate Proctor, political editor of Politics Zone. We'll talk more about that and play that whole Charlotte Lynch interview with Boris Johnson around about 3 or 4 minutes past 8. And it's very, very enlightening about Boris Johnson's attitude towards this. But why pick a fight in the first place? Seems to be a pretty good question. Right, how has business been this week? We'll take the views of David Buick in just a second, and Ryan Giggs.